So what happened again to our Kissy Missy at the end of another chapter of Poppy Playtime? We care about this character as if she's one of our own, and once again, something happens to her at the end. The only question left is Kissy Missy still alive? We need to figure out what happened. To begin with, we need to look at the third ending of Poppy Playtime, or rather the ending in the third chapter, and only then can we return to the fourth. Who attacked Kissy Missy? They don't explain this to us for some reason, but if we pay attention to the injuries left by the sudden attacker, we can deduce who attacked her. The injuries to Kissy Missy are as follows. Her paw was severely damaged or broken. She was treated a little and can still function somewhat, but unfortunately, the injury was so serious that her paw was torn off. It's unlikely that would have happened if she had been holding on to us with the other paw and wasn't holding on to something with the injured one, or else we would have both fallen. There's also damage on her back and legs, but it seems like Poppy managed to give her first aid and bandaged her up. Of course, the most severe wound is the scorched part of her body, as if someone tried to burn Kissy Missy. How many fire-breathing monsters do you know? Well, unless some dragon attacked Kissy, which we knew about and got rid of immediately, and it's unlikely it breathed fire. As far as we know, none of the other characters are related to fire. Unless Catnap could have used his red gas and set her on fire, but that's impossible since Catnap died. He was killed by Prototype himself. So, there's only one monster that could have used such an unusual ability. Prototype. We don't know much about him, but with each chapter we get more and more details. Here, we unexpectedly learn that he has huge crab legs and is apparently very large. As for his abilities, I won't even mention them. He once created a laser pointer in his dungeon to escape from it. He literally created it out of thin air. He also has some kind of fire ability in his arsenal. In this case, Kissy Missy's reaction to Prototype is completely justified. When we see the shadow and notice how Kissy Missy trembles, we can conclude that she's afraid of encountering him again. She reacts as if this monster has already attacked her. Upon hearing the Prototype's voice at the end, she becomes afraid again. To scare Kissy Missy, Prototype only needs to hint at his appearance, and she's so terrified of him that his voice makes her tremble because she understands he could easily kill her. And at the end of the third chapter, he nearly succeeded in doing that. By the way, she managed to do something that no monster had ever accomplished. When facing Prototype, she survived. And in my opinion, this is a very important detail that makes Kissy Missy stronger in our eyes. Now let's move on to the next question. Did Kissy Missy die at the end of the fourth chapter? Well, since Prototype couldn't kill her at the end of the third chapter, how could she have died at the end of the fourth chapter? There's a theory that she fell with us and was crushed by rocks. But that seems unlikely because if that were the case, we would have definitely seen her death. Okay, what if Prototype descended from wherever he's been hiding and finished off Kissy Missy in the process? Well, first of all, we would have witnessed that moment firsthand. It would have been a shocking and intense scene to see him descending from whatever dark corner of the world he's come from, taking the life of one of the most formidable and unpredictable monsters. Prototype would likely have thrown her lifeless body down onto the ground as a grim warning, a reminder that no one is safe from his cold and calculated plans. His message would be clear: no one is untouchable. Secondly, though, I find it strange to consider the idea that he would descend for such a dramatic confrontation when he had already set things in motion, planting explosives and effectively blowing us up in the first place. If his goal was to eliminate us, then it seems unnecessary for him to go to the trouble of making a personal appearance and finishing off Kissy Missy. Why would he bother to go down and do the job himself when the explosives were already set to achieve the same outcome? It just doesn't seem to line up with what we've seen of his character and objectives. What kind of villain would be so persistent and stubborn, trying to kill us in a seemingly easy way, failing, and then deciding to personally finish the job? It just doesn't add up. It almost feels as though his previous attempts didn't satisfy him, and he needed to make sure that we were truly gone. He couldn't leave anything to chance. But at the same time, his actions come across as unnecessarily excessive and reckless, which really doesn't fit the persona we've come to expect from someone as methodical as Prototype. It also bothered me that Kissy Missy didn't fall with us. After all, she was with us during the blast, so why didn't she end up in the same situation as the rest of us? Did Prototype capture her at that moment in some way that we couldn't see or understand? Probably not. It seems like he wasn't as interested in her as he was in capturing Poppy. Kissy Missy, despite being a powerful and significant character, didn't seem like a priority for Prototype, at least not compared to Poppy, who had clearly been his main target all along. Kissy Missy didn't seem to hold that level of importance to him, especially since his ultimate goal seemed to be making sure we were blown up and out of the picture. Perhaps in his mind, Kissy Missy was just another obstacle in his path. That's why I believe Kissy Missy will return. I have absolutely no doubt about it. She will definitely return, probably alongside Poppy. Suddenly, this pink hand will grab us, and once again, we'll have to listen to Poppy's plan, the one who has already betrayed us several times, first in the second chapter when she wouldn't let us escape, and then in the fourth when she abandoned us at a crucial moment. It's almost like we can expect it. Yes, of course, she will return, and Kissy Missy will come back too, but if the developers decide to remove her, I don't even know how to react. I'll be so upset. That would be way too cruel, even for them. Even in a horror game like this, you just can't take Kissy away. Killing her would be a much worse decision than what they did to Pianosaurus. Kissy Missy is undoubtedly the kindest and most loyal character in the game, and it would be incredibly sad and disappointing if they just took her out like that without giving her the story she deserves. My dissatisfaction with Pianosaurus is rooted in something else. Pianosaurus is technically one of our enemies, but the problem is that we never really got a chance to interact with it or see what it could actually do. On the other hand, Kissy Missy has become like family to us through the chapters, and we've grown attached to her. I'm all for some drama in the game, but seriously, please don't hurt Kissy Missy. There's also this strange theory that Kissy Missy is still alive, which frankly is pretty obvious. Some people even bring up the ending and suggest that instead of Huggy Wuggy, we saw Kissy Missy. The idea is that we inhaled poppy gas, and now we're somehow seeing Huggy Wuggy again, just like in previous instances. This has happened before too. Huggy Wuggy came to us in our dreams, which makes this theory all the more interesting. And what could theorists possibly say about all this? Well, Huggy Wuggy has one missing arm, just like Kissy Missy, who recently lost hers. Could this be some sort of reference, especially since there seemed to be a hint earlier that it was Kissy Missy? The pink light from the signal lamp. Could that be a hint too? Maybe, but only if the developers accidentally swapped the arms. After all, Huggy Wuggy doesn't have a left arm and Kissy Missy lost her right one. We might have inhaled the poppy gas, but I really don't think it was some glitch. I don't believe we imagined it either. Huggy Wuggy really did come back. And let's not forget the height wasn't all that great. Since we fell and survived, it stands to reason that Kissy Missy will definitely survive too. Do you remember how Huggy Wuggy fell in the first part and was still alive and well? Sure, he was a little battered, but look at him now, he's running around just fine. So, I think we could encounter Kissy Missy in the next chapter almost immediately, and she'll be there trying to help us once again. Maybe this time, without the Poppy doll, most likely she'll be our new Poppy doll. She'll protect us and carry us on her shoulders, offering a sense of safety and reassurance. I'd even consider the idea of an interesting and dramatic encounter at the very beginning of the chapter, with Kissy Missy and Huggy Wuggy facing off against each other. That's something I'd really be curious to see unfold. How will their interaction go down? What will their reactions be, especially after all this time? I can't help but imagine that they'll end up fighting, and if they do, it will likely turn into a brutal and intense fight to the death. So, should we be worried about Kissy Missy in this situation? Maybe, but I don't think Huggy Wuggy is all that much stronger. They're essentially two identical, terrifying monsters. How could one of them possibly be significantly stronger than the other? It seems unlikely, doesn't it? But here's where things might get a little more interesting. Kissy Missy will still fight alongside us and help us fend off Huggy Wuggy. She'll lend us her strength to make sure we aren't overwhelmed by his attack. So what do you think will happen in the next 5th chapter? We'd really be interested in hearing your thoughts on this. Will these two legendary characters finally meet after so many years of being apart? What could it mean for us, and what consequences might their reunion have for our fate in the story? Also, during her reflections, Poppy recalls her father, Elliot Ludwig. In one of the recordings, she says, "I wish you were here, Dad. I miss your advice so much. When you ran this place, you always knew what to say." This moment reveals an important detail. Elliot Ludwig was indeed Poppy's father. It's not just a coincidence of names or a theoretical assumption, it's now a confirmed fact. But if Ludwig was her father, does that mean he himself turned her into a doll? Or was he trying to save her, but the experiment got out of control? Perhaps his obsession with bringing toys to life was driven not by a thirst for scientific breakthroughs, but by deeply personal motives. However, the main secret hidden within the laboratory is not related to the flowers, but to the children. Earlier in the game, Poppy mentioned that the prototype keeps sleeping orphans here. This means that deep within the lab, there are children who have been subjected to experiments. Possibly their minds are blocked while their bodies are stored in special capsules. Now, our goal is clear. find them, and save them. But it won't be easy. On our way, we'll face two final threats: the prototype, whose shadow we briefly saw earlier, and the return of Huggy Wuggy. Most likely, this is how the next 5th chapter will begin, while the 4th chapter ends, leaving us with many unanswered questions that we'll have to find answers to.